JACKIL.org. You can also find them on my website, jacobv.com, JACOBVI.com. The only way to support this show financially, patreon.com/JacobV. Lots of great content popping off there all of the time. Including the last time I saw my dear friend Alfred. We are in Alfred's lovely home in the servants' quarters in the top floor of an undisclosed location. The entire inside of this roof has been sandbagged to prevent fallout from mortar fire. Alfred, tell me about the UAP hearing. Have we gotten into it yet? You need a minute?
I need a minute. I'm still looking for the source of what even is happening here.
While we do that, let's talk about some of the things that are going on. For example, patreon.com/JacobVWeekly. You could see some of the music videos I've worked on. You could see live 4K concert footage of several of the bands and artists that I'm either in or friends with. And it's really great right now. And actually, if you signed up today, it's $1 a week. It's $4 a month, and you get access to everything that's ever been posted there. So you're not too late. You're not missing anything if you join now, for the love of God. Heavy Anchor, November 30th with Blinded by Stereo. No Antics has a few gigs coming up. Link up with them on Instagram. There's all kinds of dates for them to be concerned about. New video dropping. November 25th, I want to say. Is that a Friday? And I got the masters back just the other night from new material by Blinded by Stereo. So that is closer to being finished than ever, and it sounds glorious. Grateful to God. You know what I mean? And God, I love this shade of green in here, Alfred.
That was my wife's choice. She did a good job.
Oh, it's a beautiful shade of green. It complements my Nikes.
It is. I enjoy it as well.
It's lovely. It's so soothing and thoughtful, demure, even. I would say.
It was the joint hearing on unidentified anomalous phenomena in the Subcommittee on Cybersecurity, Information Technology, and Government Innovation, and Subcommittee of National Security, the Border and Foreign Affairs.
So there was a lot of stuff they could tell us that, like, yes, we have reclaimed fallen craft, we have reverse engineered things, but they couldn't really answer any specific questions in a way that was very aggravating.
I wish I had followed it more closely because the whole thing is fascinating. I mean, clearly there's some interesting tidbits that have come out of it. I did catch the detail on the spheres coming out of the ocean and tracking F-35s or F-22s.
Well, and this is the thing that people are talking about a lot, is that these guys in that hearing specifically are talking about unidentified anomalous phenomenon, because that is a broader term that relates to UFOs, like we talk about, but also submersible phenomenon, things coming in and out of the ocean, and, you know, I actually think the more of this you hear, the more it makes me feel like they could have been preparing us for this for a long time.
I mean, certainly to the extent this stuff has been known and like existed and the government has been dealing with it, they sat on it for a while to just now tell us, oh yeah, this is real. Which makes me skeptical off the bat, because if that were the case, it's sort of like a phenomenally anticlimactic way of introducing this concept to the public. And maybe that was the point. Maybe that was deliberate, but it just doesn't track with anything I've ever known about the government.
You know what I've been watching a lot of is remote viewing. Like Operation Stargate, Operation, what was the one, Grill something?
I'm not familiar with this.
So this is where they would identify military personnel that were more effectively psychic capable than others. And then they would use them to great success for at least 15, 20 years to remote view a target. So what they would do is, you are the remote viewer. You're a psychic capable Army personnel. military personnel. They moved around a lot because they kept getting outed also, and this is a funny part of the story. They changed names and housing agencies a lot. But one of the things was that what they do is they'll give you an envelope with coordinates and a time period, or they'll give you the coordinates and then they'll tell you the time period to view remotely, and then you describe that to them, and then they use that data in their operation, whether it's rescuing hostages, identifying areas of reconnaissance, whatever.
Is there any confirmation of the successful nature of the...
Yeah, this guy went on and did a book about this, and there's an institution now, or institute, I should say, not institution.
So were these... They were verified hits. Were these remote viewers?
Lots of them.
Successful in there.
Yeah. And it kind of grew initially and then proved to be successful. And then for at least a point of 15 years, the CIA was really publicly anti anything having to do with psychics, right?
Sure.
But they would go back to this guy and his team over and over again for 15 years to get reconnaissance.
I'm sure there were skeptics in the CIA that didn't want it to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And
didn't believe it.
Yeah, I've watched interviews with a few of these people that were part of the same program. One of them that keeps coming up in clips a lot is that they had one of them remote view Mars from like 1 million years ago. And it was like a bunch of people trying to get rescued from a dying planet. And they don't know why the CIA wants to know that.
I mean...
There's a lady called Mad Hatter News that I've been following because she kind of summarizes some of the declassified CIA documents. Because it's kind of crazy what they admit. And a lot of these get released automatically if they're not stopped for some reason. It's because they have ages of classification or
Sure.
after so many years or whatever. And so that experiment was detailed that way in a declassified CIA document dating back to 1984. So in 1984, a psychic told the CIA that there used to be people on Mars and their planet dried up.
I mean, to my knowledge, there's been nothing indicating that there's any evidence of people, so it's basically an unverifiable claim.
Look it up.
No, I mean, it's just...
You don't know what I've seen.
And I believe that was truly a thing that happened at the CIA. I'm suggesting it's like it's kind of a silly thing to ask about because until we invent time travel, which as far as we know we cannot do, it's there's no way one could verify it's not just the musings of a crazy person.
That's a good point. When you go that far back in the past,
right?
Certainly.
I mean, that was a time when nobody thought water had been on Mars, and that we now believe and understand.
Other people think this is what makes me crazy is because all of a sudden in the King Kong reboot we started getting in my adult life, right? Skull Island and that whole franchise of
Peter
King Kong.
Jackson King Kongs.
So that goes into Hollow Earth theory.
I mean, we pretty much know that's not the truth, though.
Okay, but why is that in the movie? And then now we got aliens coming out of the ocean, and now we can't go into all of Antarctica. What's going on, Alfred?
We can't go into Antarctica?
Yeah, there's huge parts of Antarctica you can't get into. There's bouncers with velvet ropes all over hundreds of square kilometers of Antarctica.
And they keep
all roped in by Serbian bouncers that are dressed like you.
This is the night of...
if you're a bouncer in Antarctica, that's what you need.
I mean... What is in those places where you can't go?
Megalodons, extra-dimensional beings.
Is this all from the Peter Jackson King Kong movies?
This is just in Peter Jackson. Peter Jackson said that they use humans as slaves down there.
I mean, if Peter Jackson says it, I'd be inclined to believe it.
Yeah, I do believe Peter Jackson. Believe all Peter Jacksons is the thing I've always said.
Oh, this is a different Peter Jackson?
No.
This is that Peter Jackson.
It's the same one, but if there was another one, I'd be inclined to believe him based off my track record with the first Peter Jackson.
I believe the GURPS role-playing games were made by Peter Jackson.
Do you know the story of the secret American president, Robert Clayton?
Robert Clayton.
Robert Clayton.
Please tell us the story of Robert Clayton.
He was a black man, and he was president of the United States in 1793, but they erased him from history.
Why did they erase him from history?
I don't know. They never told me because they erased him from history.
Well, elaborate. Who erased him from history?
The clockwork elves that are in the cave in Antarctica with King Kong and Godzilla.
What were they doing messing with the American government at that time?
I think they think it's fun.
I mean, that tracks.
I think they need us to mine gold.
There was some machination that involves.
It's all been an elaborate ruse.
And our entire capitalistic society that's descended from those moments is basically a feeder system for these entities that exist in Antarctica.
I also think some people think the Ark of the Covenant is down there.
In Mar-a-Lago?
No. It wasn't Mar-a-Lago before going to Israel. But that was a replica.
Yeah, it was.
But the original was really a replica.
I mean, there's the whole Ship of Theseus argument. In any case, if it's this old, it would have had to have been restored, unless it was, Jesus magic keeping it alive.
Well, it's radioactive. It's completely coated in gold. It makes all the Ethiopian monks go blind.
I mean, everything I've ever heard is that it's in Ethiopia. I'm quite sure it wasn't at Mar-a-Lago.
I wish they could turn it off, though, so it wouldn't fuck those guys up so bad.
I mean, maybe they should keep their distance if it's...
Alfred, I haven't seen you since the election. Can we just... can we talk for a second?
We can talk.
About... I felt like it was close enough to be interesting, but not in any of the right ways to where it was ever actually close.
I think that's a good description of it. It was,
as far as the numbers shaking out with the vote.
It was the Trump supporters in the campaign weren't thrilled with where they were going into that election. They weren't. Yeah. I mean, they crowed confidence early on in the election, especially before Harris got in. And they kind of blinked a little bit in the weeks leading up to the election because they thought it was within... They certainly thought she was within striking distance. But, once again, the polls got it pretty wrong. Even if they were, within the margins of error. I mean, it's it could be anywhere from 40 to 60 on either side. It doesn't do us a lot of good. And there's no predictive value in any of the things that they gave.
What do you attribute that to?
There's a lot of things going on. I think part of it is incomplete data and not a good way to get samples that are meaningful anymore. And that is attributable to technology. Back in the day when it was you could call everyone's house and they had to pick up the phone and they didn't have caller ID and they didn't know who it was, they got a lot more random samples. Now there's a self-selecting group of people that are engaged that are oversampled, and there's a lot of people that don't want to talk to a pollster that are undersampled.
In the 21st century, is there a way to accurately gauge how people are going to vote before they vote? I guess that you would be a much richer person if you knew that answer precisely.
I mean, that's what they're all trying to do, and so far they haven't been terribly good at it.
And the media slant doesn't make any media space necessarily a helpful gauge.
No, it really doesn't.
So, to the people who voted differently from us, right, that, I think the only thing I can do in this situation is think about what can we learn from this experience.
I would think that's a conversation that's happening in a lot of places right now. And there's a number of lessons to take away from it, certainly. I don't think anyone's really got their finger on the pulse, including me and anyone else I've talked to, about what precisely cocktail of things that happened that were definitive in pushing, in particular, I think, younger white men into the Trump camp. But there's been some diagnoses, certainly. And social media is definitely a factor. There was active groups of videos and just news sites that are totally off the radar of people like the pollsters of the Democratic Party. Or they didn't know these things. There's some awareness of Joe Rogan and his followers and the impact of that. And I thought it was a mistake that Harris didn't go on the Joe Rogan show. I thought she really needed to do that.
I guess they wanted to make the statement that it doesn't come down to that, but you leave the door open to that being the assumption when you don't do it.
It was not a good decision.
And
for
what
her not
about all
to
the
do it.
money they let come out that she paid to all these people, all these celebrities at her rallies? She was breaking off millions all over town.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything about
She
that.
gave Oprah $1 million.
For what? Like to show up, be entertainment?
Apparently, Oprah was hosting the event.
Yeah, I mean, there are costs that go into these things.
Absolutely.
So it is what it is. And, I mean, come on. You can't really go, well, the Democrats are corrupt, and then say, but I'm going to vote for Trump. Like, if that's even an issue for you, that it would keep you home if it did anything.
Yeah. And, well, I think that's also very interesting because there were huge numbers at the polls.
It was down, right?
It was down from last time.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, but there were still a lot of people who voted. There was a lot of engagement.
The popular vote went to Trump for 49.9% of the vote, I read today.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Harris got
plurality. It's not
48.3 or 48.6% of the vote.
Trump did not win a majority of the vote, but he won more than she did.
Yeah.
And
which is also crazy.
Well, I mean, it's a very polarized country, and Trump is a cipher for people. It's the people who voted for Trump. I think this is something that wasn't as well understood as it's becoming. Didn't vote for any of the things that he's actually going to do necessarily. They voted for this idea of him, which may or may not be anything close to what he's actually said.
Well, and I think it started that way. I watched Fahrenheit 11/9 again. And, it
definitely was that in 2016, for sure.
If you let Michael Moore tell the story, Trump only ran because he was trying to negotiate a higher salary out of NBC because he wanted to beat Gwen Stefani. He never anticipated flaming through the entire primary like that. And that's part of probably why he amped up talking so crazy. It's because he said, I don't want to fucking be president. I gotta get kicked out of this.
You look at his face on the election night 2016. Yeah. It was dread on his eyes.
Yeah. He didn't want to do that shit.
No, he didn't. He had no intention of winning this thing. I believe
this is all Gwen Stefani's fault.
Then she
goes on that show and steals that lady's husband.
There's a legitimate case to be made that this has something to do with that.
Good. Michael Moore wasn't lying.
I mean, it's. I think it's more complicated than that. Obviously, I would think.
No. Because here's the thing, though, is just like the DNC for the last maybe 20 years, that Trump obviously had no idea what the American people actually wanted. Because if he had known they wanted him, he wouldn't have come so close to the flame.
Well, I think he might have had a different attitude if he knew he could get it. I think he just really never expected.
I don't think so
actually
either.
Win the presidency. And like none of us really did, and there was that much. There's clearly reason one is that there's a constant thread of discontent in this country now. Like the pot has been effectively stirred by the agitators. People think the country is going to hell in a handbasket all the time when it's objectively not. But there is actual struggle out in the real world, and politicians don't always. The Democrats failed to communicate a message that would resonate with people who were hurting at the grocery store, who needed help, who see the inequality, and the Republicans said the Democrats are the reason for all your problems. So vote Republican and put Trump back, make America great again. It's a real simple slogan.
Yeah, as an incumbent, I don't think a vague platform is the move. I would plan on getting really specific about some things you could correct. But also, what do you make of, since the election's been settled, now we're escalating the conflict in the Ukraine?
We are not escalating the conflict. The conflict is needed an escalation for quite some time. And frankly, the Biden administration has been too timid, in my view, in opposing Russian expansionism. And Europe is rightly pissed off and is ready to, the Germans are ramping up military production. The British are saying the Marines will be on the front lines the moment the Russians cross over into NATO territory. There's a lot of saber riding going on right now.
Why can't we just keep the Ukraine out of NATO?
Why wouldn't we negotiate with terrorists?
Okay, that's what I thought you were going to say.
I mean, it's really the argument. I
agree with you.
I think Trump is going to go and negotiate with terrorists.
If we say, you know what, never mind, we're not going to protect the Ukraine, then we're letting we're emboldening Russia. You're saying there's no putting the genie back in the bottle.
I think that's right. I mean, Russia crossed a number of red lines. They should be a pariah state until they change their government at this point. And they're already threatening nuclear strikes on NATO cities. It's like we can't let that be the thing that you think you need to do to win
to get their way.
I mean, we can't give them their way because of that. But something's going to give. I don't see this going to a true armed conflict between NATO and Russia. But I don't see the Russians backing down. They've got nothing left. Their economy is entirely driven by wartime considerations. It's making ammo. They're all in on this, and they're weak. They're showing how weak they are, and they're apparently that. Did you see the MERV strike in Ukraine? The ballistic, the
ICBM.
It's not truly an ICBM. There's different classifications. Maybe more of an LRBM, a long-range ballistic missile.
LRBM,
but
Little River Band Missile.
It's one of those things where they may have none of them left. There's at least some reporting that there were 2 experimental rockets really that were launched with this MERV, the multi-warhead capability. And the warheads didn't have apparently any explosives in them at all. They were just sort of dummy warheads, but the velocity of them causes damage. But apparently the damage was, at least in some reports that I've seen or heard, not very extensive. But it was more of a psychological warfare thing where Putin was saying, "Look what I got. Yeah. I can dump this many nukes on your city."
Why are there Korean soldiers in Russia?
That's a really interesting question. I don't get it myself. Obviously, the Koreans are trying. Kim Jong-un is trying to curry favor with Moscow. They've been getting closer over the last couple of years in their relationship, and I think the Russians have been giving the Koreans a lot of resources in exchange for military equipment and now men coming in. So, I think the short answer is life is super cheap in North Korea, and the government just traded a bunch of lives for political favor because they really actually don't care about their people. That the Russians needed North Korean troops is another sign of Russian weakness militarily.
Yeah, the fact that you're going to call in the most brainwashed and emaciated army on record.
Well, I mean, I think I don't know what quality of troops are going to Russia, but it's fair to say that there is military capability on the part of North Korea. They can do some damage. Whether their people are going to be willing, they're a good fit over there is a different question. And under the joint Russian or non-joint Russian command, as the case may be, of these North Korean soldiers, clearly the Russians are incompetent military leadership in that regard. So they don't have the pieces that you would have to have in a multinational army to make those work. I mean, we've heard a lot of chaos out of those North Korean troops, who incidentally are really only in Kursk, which is Russia proper. It's the part of Russia that Ukraine invaded and is occupying. They haven't crossed into Ukraine proper, and it would be a much more of an international incident if they did. Right now, the Russians can say that our ally North Korea has simply sent reinforcements, troops to help us defend and expel the invaders from our territory.
Yeah.
So that's their rationale right now, but it would be a major escalation for them to cross into Ukraine proper itself.
Okay, so what about people that will tell you that they voted for Trump because they wanted him to stop World War III?
Honestly, the best prospect for de-escalating this, because it will be so unsatisfactory, is Donald Trump. I think that actually, if you think that if we don't de-escalate and capitulate to the Russians, that we're inevitably going to be in World War III, Trump is going to do some things that are going to be really hard to watch and give Russia a bunch of stuff. But I think that will be the result, is that he will act. I believe Trump can bring home, and the Trump team that doesn't give a shit about Ukraine will bring home a solution that we advocate for. I don't know if the Ukrainians will take it. That's the real wild card there.
Do Americans care at this point?
We can't stop the Ukrainians from fighting. We can stop giving them stuff, which is what Trump will do. And that will effectively start to drain, and Russia will grind out whatever it needs to get to say, we're done, deal with it. Europe is the other piece of this which could change that answer. But I think the end game for the U.S. is that we're going to stop funding any actions in Ukraine and stop sharing with them military equipment.
Just get it out. Oh, please.
You need a Diet Coke, let me know. So it's kind of depressing that that's the answer, but I think it is.
And is it because he'll say and do things that a normal mainstream politician wouldn't do?
100%. And he's going to abandon the global sort of defense of democracy and capitulate and advocate for the capitulation to an aggressive dictator that invaded another sovereign country's territory with no provocation. It's not something that we usually hold as like an American value.
So, how does his presidency potentially change our relationship to the conflict in Israel?
It's an interesting question because it does feel like the administration's response or lack thereof in Israel and pressuring the Israelis, and I think Biden made some noises for a while, and Netanyahu effectively told us to go pound sand, and we haven't heard that much since then. But it's a geopolitical play that is a counter to the invasion of Ukraine, in that Russia has relied from very early on in that conflict on supply from Iran. And, Gaza was one thing. Gaza is one thing. But Israel is turning up the heat on Beirut in Lebanon, particularly Hezbollah, who's an Iranian proxy. And, the Russians have certainly interests in the region as well. And effectively, Israel is tying down resources of Iran by doing that. And that is in our geopolitical interest, notwithstanding the many, many civilians who are dying in the conflict.
And my thing is, going back to the political history of Israel and the West, I mean, but with our back and forth on it, it seems like we need to maintain Israel as an outpost of influence in that region, but that we also get wishy-washy back and forth with our administrations, and we've emboldened some of our enemies in the region.
Well, it's complicated because I think everything you said is true, and I would call organizations like Hezbollah and Hamas enemies in the region for sure. But we also have interests in the Palestinian people. We have interest in the Lebanese people. So there are conflicting interests on that point. But Israel has, in our lifetimes, certainly been robustly supported as a proxy of the United States, as an outpost, as you suggest. And it's more than that, because the Israelis, are actively stealing things from us. And I mean the Israeli government to our government in terms of intelligence now. But and always have been, and I've always gotten a free pass for it for the most part. There's been some diplomatic rebukes and whatnot, but they are not always acting in the interest of the United States by any means, but they nevertheless are like the closest thing we have to a proxy and an ally. I mean, they are an ally against hostile nations in the area. So do we need it? It's probably more trouble than it's worth, because we also have Saudi Arabia on our team,
Right.
at least nominally, and have bases there. We have the ability to project power without Israel, but Israel has done a lot of military activity in the last 60, 70 years, however long it's been, and has tested a lot of equipment and actual battle that happens to be our equipment.
And I don't think it can be understated their influence in the way of intelligence.
They have an incredible intelligence network throughout the Middle East. You know, they're definitely. I mean, they're very adept. They've had to be at surviving around a ton of enemies, and there is a certain value to that. It's very complicated.
Well, it just also feels like, though, it boils down to, with both Russia, Ukraine, and Israel, Palestine, that the needs or desires of either side are mutually exclusive to their enemy right now. It's like Ukraine wants to join NATO. Russia doesn't feel like they can let that happen, but Russia doesn't necessarily want to secede any of the territory they've invaded in some sort of a compromise either. I don't see a solution where Ukraine gets to just be Ukraine again.
I know it's definitely the chips have been, played on that point, but Ukraine did want to join NATO, but NATO wasn't really asking Ukraine to be there. There was some ephemeral, we'll start cooperative processes type language, and we'll see in maybe decades from now we'll talk. There was no imminent threat that Ukraine was joining NATO. But what did happen when Russia invaded Ukraine was Sweden and Finland immediately joined NATO. It was the worst possible geopolitical decision for Putin. There's so much more. I mean, I don't know more, but Ukraine has held out more spectacularly than anyone imagined it would at the beginning of this whole thing. But the Swedes have an independent army that has funded or created a lot of equipment. They have their own planes, they have their own equipment, and they're formidable in their own right. And they haven't even started ramping up for a cooperative alliance like NATO. And Finland, has fought the Russians before and probably fight them again. And they're kind of notoriously nasty to fight against, at least historically. So it's and there's a huge border with Russia now. Yeah, it is a NATO country. Like you cross that border and you got NATO to reckon with. It's not just Finland and angry Europe. It's well beyond that.
What about Trump's perspective that we pay too much of the bill for that international defense, and that smaller countries, specifically European countries, are not chipping in to NATO in a defensive measure the way they should?
The core point wasn't wrong in that Europe has slacked and relied on us to carry the water for it. And we woke him up. I mean, when we elected Trump and he started going, I'm going to pull out of NATO, that there's definitely they've been asleep for decades and now they're scared. And they probably should be, because we can't be trusted. I wouldn't trust us. So
that's the thing. It's too unpredictable. It's too back and forth, especially if you look at the last 3 or 4 elections. It's so this guy is undoing or the opposite of everything the other guy did.
But what's disingenuous about that whole argument is we were always going to spend all of the money on all of the military stuff because a big part of our economy depends on it. And we project power, and we could take everybody. And there is no country individually.
And also, we don't necessarily want somebody else to have a competitive force.
That's been the doctrine of the.
We would rather police the world. We talked about this on the show a couple weeks ago. Lucius and I are talking about, is there ways we could make money out of the military-industrial complex without having to kill people ourselves? And one thing
You're looking at it in Ukraine right now.
Yeah, and what if we sold submarines to people? Like what if the Somali pirates had some submarines?
We're not selling submarines to Somali pirates, but
well, you'd have to put a tether on them. You can't let them drive them all the way back here. But
we also really don't like the Somali pirates. We're very protective of the sea lanes.
Okay, so apparently, though, that started off because I think it was Chinese fishing boats were invading and depleting all of their fishing spots.
That might be true. The Chinese fishing boats tend to do that sort of thing wherever they go.
And I've always had this mixed feeling because, when we shot Osama bin Laden in the face, allegedly, I felt like I felt sad because I felt victory, like, oh my God, we finally got him. But I also felt like there's a whole generation of children where now the only thing they know about this guy is that we shot him in the face. They're going to say, who is that? We're going to say Osama bin Laden.
Yeah, they'll learn real quick what he did if you have that conversation.
But it's the same way with the Somali pirates. It's like I never knew that whole story about maybe why that started. And then, and then we shot them all in the head.
Well, in Somalia is...
Because they kidnapped Tom Hanks.
Somalia it's a unique basket case in so many ways. I mean, you're probably too young to remember our troops in Mogadishu and Black Hawk Down and all that. Like, that was real life time, real time for those slightly older. So, I mean, Somalia was a problem... has a ton of problems and has for many, many years. So the fact that piracy would happen there wasn't unforeseeable, and the Chinese fishing boats may have exacerbated it and made it that's like the last straw that they had to go and figure stuff out. It may be true. I mean, it's not that surprising. I gotta turn the lights back on to go off. The problem with the smart house when you stay up too late. Alexa, turn on lights. See if that works. Yeah, all right.
Thank you. We're back. That's never happened to me before. That happens to RFK a lot.
RFK?
Yeah. Can we talk about that?
The Secretary of Health and Human Services?
I was really hoping to get education. I didn't get Department of Education.
No, that's got to be Linda McMahon.
They gave it to Linda McMahon, and I got to say...
She looks the part.
She looks the part.
They all kind of look the part. I mean...
Can I tell you this about Linda McMahon? She went to school. Let her run the schools. I did just also watch a documentary about her husband shitting on a man during a threesome. However, let her run the schools.
Is that a true story?
Honey, the Vince McMahon shit is crazy.
They're getting a divorce.
Well, yeah, because he's a sex monster.
I mean, I'm disturbed by what I already heard.
He forced one of his employees into a threesome with a secretary, apparently, and then shat all over him. And went and took a shower and came back and continued participating in the threesome while that man was covered in his shit, apparently.
This is horrifying.
This is on Netflix.
Make sure my kids don't have access.
Make sure you block fucking Netflix.
I mean, I'm trying to get rid of Netflix for a number of reasons. It's expensive.
Well, and you know what? When I was buffering so much during that Tyson Paul fight, which was a travesty and a betrayal,
I turned it off.
I could get it to run 5 minutes behind on my iPhone, but not on my iPad.
I had to be up in the morning, and I was like, I'm not going to stay up till midnight trying to watch this on Stop and Go. And then for a while, it just wouldn't go.
Yeah.
It just didn't do anything.
Oh yeah, for a long while.
It was shameful. The whole thing was shameful.
It's embarrassing.
It really is. I'm almost glad I didn't watch it for that reason.
I had an insight. I think the real person who should be ashamed is Joe Rogan. Because Joe Rogan did a live comedy special on Netflix that they were doing to beta test their live functionality for the Tyson Paul fight, but there weren't nearly as many people that gave a shit about Joe Rogan's stupid shirt. And so it wasn't an accurate, valid test of their streaming bandwidth capacity because way more people wanted to see that Mike Tyson fight.
I mean, everybody wanted to see Mike Tyson knock Jake Paul out in 15 seconds.
I just wanted him to knock him down once even.
It's I've seen some of the clips from it, and it does not look like they were in
It was boring.
top form. I mean, they had every incentive to make it go long, right?
I was okay with it going long, but I was like, fucking clean him out at the end at least.
I feel like here, I'm gonna look it up.
Tyson's stamina was really good. Like he wasn't all bloody or sweaty or like terrible. Like the two Mexican guys that fought earlier in the night really beat the fuck out of each other.
Yeah, it looked like I saw a little bit of the earlier boxing, and it looked more legit than the clips of the Tyson Paul fight that I've seen.
Yeah, sad. And I just think about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's 27-year-old against a 58-year-old. There was no way. that was gonna. The only way it would have gone Mike's way is if he came out like the absolute robot that he was back in the day and destroyed him right out the gate.
What about P. Diddy?
I have purposefully not followed very closely.
Oh my God! It's like a whole.
It's a horror show.
It's psychotic, and he's still in that detention center in Brooklyn.
I have a feeling he's going to go away. I think they got enough on him at this point that.
You think they're going to put him in jail?
I mean, I think it sure feels like they can find some charges to throw at him.
But what about people that don't want him to go to trial?
Who are those people?
Oprah.
I mean, does Oprah run the government? Maybe.
This could be a great test of that.
I mean, are these, there's state charges too, and he's in California, right?
No, he's in New York.
He's in New York only?
No, it's a federal indictment.
Yeah, but I mean, they could bring state charges if the feds dismiss it, is my point.
Oh, yeah. I don't think that's the case, though. Because they're also lining up all the civil lawsuits, because those will go on stay when the federal trial starts, if that's what happens.
Honestly, in today's justice system, with this administration coming in, who knows? It's seriously like nothing matters in the law anymore. The courts just make up stuff that they want to make sure that what happens is what they want to happen, and it's all political and party aligned, and it's frankly pretty disheartening.
What about the rise and fall of Matt Gaetz?
I was surprised as how fast he went down. His shit must be really bad. That's what I could say about that.
But they dropped the charges, but also submitted it to the ethics board.
Well, so it's a congressional ethics investigation.
Yeah,
and he resigned from Congress, which ended the investigation because Congress no longer has jurisdiction to investigate.
But then why drop out of the running for AG?
Well, because he wasn't going to get confirmed. Because the Senate, he went over to the Senate, marched around with J.D. Vance, and one day later resigned from, because he got the message. The message was delivered to him. It was like, Matt, you're a dickhead and we hate you. Besides everything else, you've been an asshole and you've fucked everything up.
But he can't go back into Congress either?
He could go back into Congress. He was elected for the next 2 years. So he resigned from his current term and could take the oath when the new Congress is seated in January. He has said he's not going to do that. But it is theoretically possible. He will not be welcomed back if he decides to.
I only recognize him from him screaming at people in Congress.
Yeah, I mean, nobody likes him.
What's his deal?
He's a fucking frat bro that got to Congress and paid 17-year-olds for sex. I don't know.
How did he get into Congress?
He's from the armpit of Florida, and his daddy was a congressman.
Who was his father?
That's some other... Here, I'll look him up. He's maybe not a congressman, but definitely a politician in Florida. Because I didn't even know that motherfucker was a lawyer until he was put up as the AG. And I was like, God damn it.
How is he trying to do all this shit?
Well, I mean, he went to law school. Don Gates, American businessman and Republican politician, member of the Florida State Senate.
Yeah.
So, yeah. From some political family in
so
the
we
Northwest Florida.
We got off the trail about RFK.
Yeah, so
RFK.
He's not going to even have a department left
Cheryl.
to screw up.
There's a bomb in the car.
Oh my God.
Cheryl.
I can't believe Cheryl married him and is still married to him.
I can't believe
it made me think a lot less of her.
This whole journey she's been on. She's probably a criminal. I mean,
what did she do?
Whatever he's doing. He's fucking cutting animals up all over. He's leaving bears in Central Park. He had the head of a whale on the trunk of his family.
This is how you get a brainworm. That's literally...
maybe the brainworm came out of the whale carcass.
It could have been the whale. It could have been the bear. It could have been some other animal we haven't heard of.
There's brain-eating amoebas, brother, in Lady Bird Lake in Lake Austin.
He's carting around bear carcasses. Yeah, he's going to get a brainworm. He
dumped a bear and a perfectly good bicycle. Because he thought it would be funny.
It's this guy. Did you see the picture of him with
The Falcon?
no in Trump's airplane with McDonald's?
With the McDonald's.
Yes, and the look on his face.
I was like, I wonder what he got.
It was like getting Mitt Romney to like write Trump a check and like. It's a
Why do the
humiliation.
Trumps love McDonald's so much?
I mean, look. Why do you love Taco Bell so much?
I think
I'm not gonna yuck on McDonald's. I will eat it once in a while.
I go to McDonald's a lot for drinks.
Their drinks are decent.
I don't love the food.
No, sometimes I crave the food. I don't love it, and I always
You know what I
have a
do
pang
love
of
though
regret-
is the
regret.
chicken Big Mac.
I mean, that's why I've been going. Honestly,
How many have you had?
I probably had 3. I'd like maybe that was my 4th.
I'm definitely in double digits
I'm definitely not in double digits
with my chicken Big Macs.
But I had like 3 in the first week.
And then I get so many drinks at McDonald's that a couple times a week I get enough points for a free regular Big Mac. So sometimes for lunch I'll get the chicken Big Mac and the regular Big Mac, and I'll do a side by side. I've done that at least twice.
I mean, I think the chicken Big Mac is significantly bigger.
It is definitely bigger.
It's harder to eat.
I think it's better, and I did confirm it. The chicken is different. It's
Yeah,
not just McChicken.
It's definitely different. It's like a chicken nugget and patty. Like,
Yeah, which is interesting. Because why wouldn't they just do it with the McChicken?
I think they should keep that patty and make a single sandwich. Exactly the same. You don't need
Yeah.
2 of them. It's too much.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Because also you can add mac sauce on any of their sandwiches.
You can. I never remember to, but it's a thing.
Like my favorite thing is you do the triple cheeseburger plain with you add mac sauce.
The triple cheeseburger is a good move.
The triple cheeseburger is good. I don't know. You and me were debating about this last night. I don't like the pickles on it.
I have pickles till I die.
I like the pickle.
I almost got extra pickles.
But
on mine.
I prefer like when places give you the pickle on the side. I always eat the pickle, but I don't want it in my burger.
I just can't. Like, if I have 2 toppings, they're pickles and mayonnaise on a burger. It's a good burger.
That's what Nick from No Antics does. Is triple cheeseburger add mayo.
Yeah,
It's good.
it's. I mean,
It's good. He was hungover the other day, and I brought him 2 of those to the studio at Doorstop. That'll get your day started.
it's a meal.
And there was a while there where the triple cheeseburger did a relaunch, and it was $2. And a triple cheeseburger for $2
$2 is a good deal.
That's too much beef for $2.
So you mentioned breakfast. Where do you go for breakfast? Do you eat out, or do you?
I
eat
stop
at
at McDonald's usually in Hampton Village, and I get my Diet Cokes. I get a single large sugar-free vanilla iced coffee. This week, I got a single apple pie for breakfast.
home? That is probably your best option on your commute. Like, get it early so you can eat in the car.
I like a really good breakfast sandwich. My favorite breakfast sandwich is at Up Late. They do right now. You could get a bacon, egg, and cheese on French toast at Up Late. I may get that on the way home. Now that I've said that, and
I believe that will happen.
and I got the craziest raspberry donut there the other day. And but in the morning, I don't really like to eat a whole bunch of something savory, especially back when I used to teach first thing in the morning. I didn't want to have any reason to be motivated to have to run out of the room to go somewhere else before my first hour was over, so I wouldn't eat then because my second hour would back up to lunch, and so I would just eat lunch early. But I always hit my liquids.
Yeah, do you drink coffee?
Iced coffee. I get a big iced coffee. And then I switch, and then I have Diet Cokes. I usually get the iced coffee and at least one of the Diet Cokes completely done before I get to work because it's such a fucking commute.
Yeah.
And 40 minutes in the slop. And then when I get up there, I have all the ice still. I get extra ice because then I can just add my cans of Diet Coke to my ice throughout the morning.
I mean, that is a logical solution.
And I get 4 drinks because that's how many fits in one of those trays. So if they only had a 2-drink cup holder, I would just get 2 drinks. But they have the 4 tray.
I mean, yeah, 4.
This is really hard because now I want a breakfast sandwich from Up Late. I want a triple cheeseburger with mayonnaise. I want 4 drinks.
So where is Up Late?
Venevetter and Kings Highway, like
at the where they
right by the bug store, like by
where the bank
World's
used to
Fair
be?
Donuts.
Is there still a bank there?
World's Fair Donuts. Venevetter and
Oh, way up there. Yeah.
Shaw,
like
Fedivetter and
you're
Shaw.
Yeah, right by on the other side of O'Connell's.
Yeah, and sure, yeah, behind it.
Yeah.
And there's also one in the Loop. And they also have tacos that are really good. They have carne asada tacos or tofu asada tacos.
Well, that's on the list.
I played at Platypus last night with Kit's Row, and my favorite things there on their menu is they have fried tofu. Their popcorn chicken's really popular, but I can get chicken anywhere.
Yeah, fried tofu.
The fried tofu
is actually a really good thing.
It's so good, and I just don't feel as bad about it. And then I get their caramelized Brussels sprouts. Okay, I need those on the way home too. We got to wrap this up because I got
turned on to the caramelized Brussels sprouts somewhere else. And,
Yeah,
you put some gochujang on it.
Yeah,
and it's the best thing in the whole world.
Yeah, Sato.
Yeah,
does Brussels sprouts that have like a teriyaki kind of thing on them that they're so good.
I would eat anything Sato makes. All I had there was sushi, and it was amazing.
Yeah, they cure some of their fish themselves in-house there in that building. There's rooms upstairs with cure. Is that a refrigerating thing?
I have no idea. I didn't go upstairs.
Yeah, you're dry aging it, but it's in a cold box.
Okay.
And they'll have huge slaughters of, bluefin or something, and they'll hang it in these dry agers.
So have you been to Indo? It's over by Union Loafers.
I don't think I've been to Indo.
It's the same.
I know what it is.
Yeah, it's Nick Bogner.
But we just go to Sato because we were going to their spot in the county before.
You should take Keenan to Indo at some point, maybe after the baby's born. But
well, that's the thing; she can't have the sushi right now. And it's one of our favorite
have
things.
Cocktails there if she wants to drink. But does she drink?
Not really as much. Sometimes, if that would be the situation though. A nice
they have
dinner.
really good mixology there.
Well, that's how Good Company is. Shout out to Good Company in the Grove. That's John's new place, and they have fabulous cocktails and stuff, and they pair a lot of them with things on their menu. And so, in a situation like that, when she's not fucking pregnant, she'll get something. But that I love going there because they know that I'm California sober for the troops, and then I'm John's brother-in-law. So they would say, "Hey, make sure you get him a Diet Coke. Don't give him the juice."
You should go to Indo and then compare it with Sato because it's a very different experience. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts about it.
I like Sato a lot.
Sato is amazing. Indo is, like, quality-wise, I mean, you're going to get the same.
Yeah.
But I think, I always thought, anyway, Indo was like the flagship, and Sato was supposed to be a little less, I guess it is a little less intense in the experience. There's kind of an intensity to the
It's
Indo
not as high
experience.
concept, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's right.
It's a little more...
The execution...
It's definitely finer on the scale of dining, but it's...
The atmosphere is a little more relaxed.
Yeah, it fits in that neighborhood really nice, too, though. If you were going to do a sushi place on the hill, that's exactly the vibe.
It was... They nailed it.
Yeah,
I will go there anytime.
I'm friends with him on Facebook, and he's just always so happy every day to get out there and cut that fish.
I'm glad he likes it, because he's good at it.
Did you hear Bird and Barrel's finally coming back?
Yes, I did.
Did we get a new date on that yet?
I haven't seen the latest.
I haven't seen any news
It's been
on
a while since I've talked about it.
Been a while.
But, yeah, I'm excited about it.
I could say.
It's going to be at TAM, right?
Yeah, in Tam Avenue.
Yeah,
Bar.
I mean, and that's his bar, too. So, not his bar, but, like, he's involved with it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's good.
So, I mean, he's been involved
My
with TAM
wife
for a long, long
has missed
time.
that chicken, baby.
But, yeah, it'll be a good day.
Alfred, let me ask you a question as my attorney. That if I get you a platter of fried chicken from a home-style fried chicken joint, and underneath your fried chicken is a single slice of white bread, when you are done with your chicken, do you eat that bread?
No.
Why not?
I have plenty of calories in my body already. I don't need the fried chicken soaked bread. I mean, would I eat it? Yes. But do I? No.
Next question.
Did I just violate some kind of covenant?
No, I just think it's interesting because everyone's either way on this.
I mean, I'm not disgusted by it by any means. It's just
because they do that with the chicken at Platypus, and last night they do that with the tofu. So when I ordered the tofu, she wanted to make sure the bread was all right, that I had that, and so I ate it. And then we talked about that for a minute. I said, I always eat the bread. You're gonna give me a slice of bread.
if it was like on a platter in a restaurant, I probably would eat it. If it was like in a bag of chicken, I always think of chicken as a home brought meal. Like we always
no.
huge batches.
No, you're on a platter in a restaurant.
Yeah, no. In that context, I probably would eat it.
Yeah. Yeah, for something about it, I see what you're saying, though, in a to-go box, not as essential for some reason.
Right, it's like, how much chicken did I just eat? A whole one. Yeah. I'm good.
And part of that is when I quit drinking and I started losing weight is sometimes I get really, really, really hungry.
Yeah.
In a way that I didn't used to, because I used to have an extra several hundred calories just sloshing around my bloodstream.
Yeah, your body was used to more calories than that.
Yeah,
for sure.
and so now what'll happen is, if I can finally get food, because working in the ghetto, you can't just walk in and pick up a hot, delicious, clean meal and start eating it. Sometimes you got to really, really charm some people to get food going and on time. And so it got to the point where I was so hungry, and somebody had an extra plate from the catfish place or whatever, and I ate just everything that was in the box. I ate the little ramekin of coleslaw, I ate the fried catfish, whatever else came with it.
What's the rating? Was it good?
It was great. Oh, yeah. Mother's Fish, I think, is where they go up there.
This is Riverview?
Yeah. And but the bread, I ate the bread, too. Because I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to get food again. And I got so hungry.
I mean, in that circumstance, 100%.
Yeah. I always joke.
Mother's Fish and Sports Bar on North Grand.
Well, there's one over there.
That's not the one?
I don't know. It's driving around up there. Sometimes I can't tell what's open and what just used to be there.
I mean, this place sure looks like the fried fish place.
Yeah, they got good fish there. But I'm wondering if that's the same one they get where I work. I can't remember. Because that's a little farther away than I was picturing.
You did not yourself attend the pickup?
No, they picked it up. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Somebody had ordered an extra one. And I was just so hungry. They said, "You want this?" I said, "Oh my God, I was just about to go out to get something to eat." And that's a premium dining experience. Because they'll give you the little packet of hot sauce.
Oh yeah.
Woo! Not taco sauce, hot sauce, but in a packet. Which is, if you don't eat that kind of food all the time, you don't see that.
Yeah, that's a bit of a haul from Riverview.
No, that's not the one. Mother's Fish is... I'm just thinking about that because sometimes I pass that on my way home if I'm trying to avoid 70.
Yeah, you're going past the cemetery for a while.
No, that ain't it. But there's plenty of good places up there. You know what's right by that cemetery?
What?
The best chop suey in North City.
I have never had St. Louis chop suey.
The one by me?
I've never had...
I haven't had that one since I was a kid.
Any chop suey in St. Louis, ever.
Oh, God.
No, I've lived here for...
Well, most of us go to a place that says that we get the fried rice. But the best place in North City, John's Chop Suey on maybe it's New Florissant or West Florissant.
Would that be, if you were going to go get chop suey, is that the place you would go? Like you said, you've never had it before. This is the way.
That place is really good because the fried rice is real dark, like you want it to be. But also they do a duck fried rice.
I mean, you're speaking my language.
Okay. The duck fried rice at John's. Get the Kevlar out. Go see Rush Limbaugh's grave.
Yeah.
And
people are peeing on it.
Yeah, and bring the duck fried rice from John's Chop Suey on one of the Florissants.
Well, see, I was telling you the other day, we, as a family, we go and picnic in Bell Fountain Cemetery. And it's a thing that we enjoy. And
yeah, we want to go.
That's right there. It would be the time to do it. Just go get some chop suey.
We'll pick up John's.
I mean, that's the thing. So that's probably in my future. John's.
I'm not going up there at night.
I know. You go up there on like...
I like to get there right when they open at 10:30 in the morning.
I think we've gone on weekdays, and it's awesome because like nobody's at the cemetery.
No, yeah. A weekday is good.
Like if you have like a vacation day or something.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out how long we've been on. Oh, I think we just officially hit the hour. So moving forward, with average Americans, what could we be expecting in this transition?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. It's a $1 billion question. I don't know, man. Honestly, it's my attitude right now is to buckle up a little bit and just get ready for chaos and try to tune it out and live our lives as much as we can, because there's nothing in the short term any of us are going to do. Protest will do nothing against this administration. They won't care at all.
They'll probably shoot at you.
I mean, that's on the table. They've said so.
Yeah.
So, I'm not saying people shouldn't protest, but don't expect it to do anything other than maybe provoke some kind of
obviously
clash.
popular opinion is not as valuable of a tool against this administration upcoming than it would be in others, maybe.
Well, especially now that he can't get elected again. There's no incentive. Unless they really honestly make a run at changing the Constitution or something, which is bad shit.
Do you think they really would even bother?
Why at that point? But no, I don't think they care about the law.
He's
at
so
all.
old.
They don't know. They don't. There's no integrity in the people around him. He has lost 5 steps. He's enough of his one true asset in dealing with the adversaries of the United States is that he's such a wild card. You actually aren't sure whether he'll fucking push the button. Like you could see it. It could happen.
Yeah.
And who knows what people around him will do. Well, would they let that happen? I don't think they would. I think the people around him would be like, "Sir, you're senile, and we're 24th Amendmenting you right now, and there's going to be a President Vance from here on out." That could really happen.
Is that better or worse than a President Trump, though?
It's different in every way, in that Trump has this magic reality distortion bubble that got him to this place.
He can kind of bend reality around him.
And there is a real feeling in this country around people who are Trump supporters that he is the one that is helping them and will make America better. So, those people will not follow J.D. Vance in the same way automatically. It's not that it couldn't happen, but it won't be in the bag. And in a situation where you have someone charismatic enough to capitalize on that, they can convert it over and bring it to the next generation. Is J.D. Vance the guy who is going to be charismatic enough to carry that movement? I don't think so. But, I don't see what any of these people see in any of these people anyway. I'm not the one to ask. But I don't feel like J.D. Vance has a following. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's my thing. And what does Tim Walz do next? Is he fucked?
He goes back and he's the governor of Minnesota. I mean,
he gets to still do that?
I don't think he resigned. Here, let's find out.
Because he doesn't necessarily have money.
No, he's not a rich man.
He's not young either, but, somebody should get him something. He should do his own set of Nikes or something. Tim Walz.
I'm seeing he did not need to. But there's no indication that I can see that he resigned.
What about Kamala Harris?
I think she's done.
You think she retires?
She'll probably go into political advocacy of some kind and make some money from it.
I kind of feel bad for her.
I mean, she did the best she could have with the cards she was
Isn't this
dealt.
Joe Biden's fault?
It's Joe Biden's fault.
He should have run in 2016.
But it didn't look that bad from an optic standpoint until close to the end. His State of the Union
He shouldn't
speech,
have rerun again. He should have just done I understand why you don't want to do one term. But
I think he really thought he could beat Trump, and he really wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I think he saw the country, and because Kamala was our best option, but it's very clear that the country is not going to vote for a woman.
Yeah.
No, it's just that.
Bill Clinton says a woman's best shot is a conservative woman like Margaret Thatcher.
I think that's probably right.
Because you're compromising on the fact that she's a woman, but
But it's your tribe and your team.
But she's for traditional something, and so she's not like you're not It's not supposed to be as crazy, I guess. It's hard to actually get into the mind of the misogynistic masses when you're not that way for real, because you got to try to figure out, like, most of the people I work with or for are women. I prefer female-heavy institutions, mostly because of my own issues. I always assume, especially men that I have any respect for, I assume they're mad at me. You know what I mean? And I do it all the time. I think, especially men in authority, is like, oh, they're mad at me. I don't deserve to be in front of them.
I don't mean to laugh at you. I'm laughing at the idea because I think it's a common one. I think it's just how men carry themselves, and it's like, unless you're comfortable with somebody, it's like that dude's a dick, or he's angry or upset, and it's like he's just living his life, probably doesn't think about you. Like in reality, nobody thinks about you for more than about 15 seconds anyway, right?
Yeah. And remember that, kids. And remember to keep up with us on patreon.com/JacobV, JacobV.com, CaddyshackIL.org. We're not saying don't vote. We're just saying maybe get involved in your community in a meaningful way, because maybe that's better.
We've got a while before the votes are happening, so in the meantime, stewing about it and being angry at the Republican governance isn't going to do us a lot of good unless we're.
Thanksgiving is this week.
Indeed.
How do you think this is going to affect families as they hit into Thanksgiving?
I think most people have probably processed their own relationships at this point with the people that voted the way they didn't want them to. And for the people for whom that's a deal breaker, it was a deal breaker no matter what. I expect there will be some arguing, but I think people are probably going to shut each other out.
Talk about something else.
Or just not go to the places where people are,
aggressive
about
it. Get the fully cooked Cajun turkey from Popeyes. It's back. Reserve yours today, not a sponsor.
We're hosting this year, and I'm sure
you fucking better be with that beautiful kitchen down there, you rat bastard. I want to cover it in aluminum trays.
We will undoubtedly have a lot of that content.
Is that marble?
It's composite.
Oh my god, never mind. I wouldn't put my aluminum tray on a composite countertop if you paid me.
It's more durable than marble.
Okay, great. How about I fucking hit it with the glizinator?
Please don't. What's a glizinator?
I would shoot it with my Glock. That's how you know who I voted for. I have a Glock.
Yeah.
I have a Glock.
What is it?
It's a Glock 19 Gen 4.
A 9?
Yeah, it's a 9x19. It was my grandfather's. Much like my grandfather left me an Ibanez S Classic.
He left you a Glock?
He also left me a Glock.
I also have a Glock.
And also he left me that thing that reads the error codes in my car when my check engine light comes on.
I meant to get that.
It's fucking like in my front seat right now.
Yeah, well, can we check my Jeep before you leave?
Well, we could do it tomorrow in the daylight. I'm going to be with you in the afternoon.
That's a better
Let's do that then.
Yeah.
I also have jumper cables.
You mentioned the jumper cables every time you talk about your car.
Because I'm ready.
It's rare for people to not have jumper cables.
People don't have jumper cables.
I always have jumper cables.
Oh, some people don't. Get your jumper cables.
It's like the sub headline of your car ad is it comes with jumper cables. It's the best thing ever.
My 2005 Mercury Grand Marquis with jumper cables. I actually think I took those out of my Ford Focus. Those were my Ford Focus jumper cables.
Yours is going to be jumper cables not included.
Jumper cables not included. I'm keeping these jumper cables.
It's the most important part of the car.
It's a little river band missile.
You said you have a good spare, right?
I have a donut, but I use it a lot.
You use it a lot.
I use my donut a lot.
That's unfortunate.
It sucks. Driving from South City all the way to North City every day, you get stuff in your tires.
You know what's worse than that is that Cadillac didn't even have a donut. It was just nothing. It was you need a tow now. Like,
yeah, a flatbed maybe even.
I mean,
some Bentleys are like that.
Mostly flatbeds. I was towed a number of times. I got a lot of flat tires in that car in this town. That's why I got the Jeep. It was
full size spare.
It was
sells itself.
It's just a full size tire. It's awesome.
Yeah. Isn't that brilliant?
You really can't recommend that aspect of the Jeep more highly.
Al Ludwig, Jacob V Weekly. We'll see you next week.
Well, that was fun.
Are you kidding?